Hi, and welcome to my first video on breaking down rhythms. Before we talk about rhythms themselves, we're going to talk about the beat. First, listen to these clicks which establish the beat. Do you hear it? Click, 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 click. Each of those clicks right now we're going to say is a beat. Okay, so I want you to try this on your own. I want you to lift your toe in between the beats and stomp your foot, stomp your toe every time you hear a click. So for you, your heel should remain on the ground like the picture shown, and you should be doing this. Stomp, 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 stomp. Okay, we call it tapping, so I'm going to use the word tap instead. So tap your foot to the beat. 2, ready, and tap, 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 tap. And I want you to think, when you are tapping, realize that your foot is actually going to be coming up on the silence in between the beat. Okay, so every time you tap your foot on the click, realize that it has to come up first in the silence in between. Okay, we'll talk about that later. And the way that I'm going to show you that later is going to be in the form of up arrows, down arrows, because of when your foot taps, stomps, and goes down, and up arrows when your foot lifts in between the beats. Okay, now that we've established what a beat is, I want to move on to what we call the rhythm tree. So the rhythm tree is something we're going to be referring to in future videos, so I don't expect you to master any of these rhythms right now, although it's very likely that you've already worked with them before. So we're going to start over here at the top with this oval that is called a whole note. We know that whole notes have 4 beats inside of them. In other words, the sound you create starts on the first beat, but it sustains for 4 beats without stopping or creating any new notes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and have us try a whole note down here. Don't worry, I'll zoom in just a moment. So we have our whole note. We're going to break it down. I'm going to zoom out just a tiny bit. There we go. Okay, so our whole note is going to last for 4 beats. So it's going to start. We're going to say 1, but we're going to hold out the word 1 for 4 beats. And we're going to pulsate our voice. We're going to pulse our voice going down and up. Your voice goes down when your foot goes down. Okay, and I want you to be thinking, even though you may not be saying the words 2, 3, or 4, you're going to be thinking them in your head, because that is the time that is passing while you're holding the full note. I'm going to do it for you in a moment, you'll know what I mean, but make sure you understand that having 2, 3, and 4, each one of those lines up with a beat. It lines up with your foot tapping and going down on one of the clicks. So let's count a whole note. 1, 2, here we go. 1. Okay, I tried to point out the notes that we were passing by as we got to them. Okay, let's go ahead and go to our next note over here that we're going to learn. So if you grab a whole note and you chop it up into 2 equal-sized pieces, you get 2 of what we call half notes. If one whole note was 4 beats, and you chopped it up into 2 equal-sized pieces, you're dividing it 4 into 2. So now that means each one of these half notes is going to get 2 beats. Going back down to our little workshop down here, we have, let me change the color right here. We have 2 half notes that we're going to count at the moment. You can have infinitely many half notes. We're counting 2 just for now. So you'll notice that I changed the parentheses because every time you start a half note, it lasts for 2 beats. So you're going to say 1, and you're going to hold it for 2 because we know that it lasts for 2. These are the 2 that it lasts for. Then the next one, we're going to say 3, and it's going to last through beat 4. So we're not going to say 2 or 4, we're going to think them in our heads while we are tapping our foot and sustaining our voice, pulsing our voice down and up. Let's try it. 1, 2, ready, and 1, 3. I'll do that one more time so I can be more accurate with the arrow. 1, 2, ready, and 1, 3. And there we go. That is how you count half notes. Okay, now we're going to talk about counting quarter notes. So if you take a half note and you chop one of those 2-beat half notes into 2 equal-sized pieces, you get 2 quarter notes. Each quarter note, because you're dividing those 2-beat half notes into 2, that means each one is going to have 1 beat now. The reason we have these funny names for these notes is because all the names relate to whole notes. So when we have a whole note, we said that's 4 beats. Half of a whole note is 2 beats. If we have a note that has 1 beat each, in this case it's going to be quarter notes. So I made this helpful reminder so that you won't forget that. If you get $1 and you divide it up into 4 equal-sized pieces, you get 4 quarters. And it's the same thing here. If you get a whole note and you divide it up into 4 equal-sized pieces, you get 4 quarter notes. Okay, so one more time. Whole notes get 4 beats, half notes get 2 beats, quarter notes get 1 beat. Let's go ahead and count quarter notes down here. So quarter notes look just like half notes, except they do not have a space in the note head. I'm also going to erase these parentheses because keep in mind, the parentheses we've been using were there to show us when there were beats that we were not going to say a new number on. In this case, we are going to say new numbers. So each one of these quarter notes lasts for 1 beat. So that means every time there's a beat, there's a new quarter note. To rephrase that, every time there's a new beat, there's a new number that we say out loud. We are not sustaining for more than 1 beat at a time. Let's go ahead and count 4 quarter notes while tapping your foot and pulsing our voice down and up. 1, 2, ready, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And there we go. These next 2 rhythms will be broken down much more completely in a different video, so I'm not going to spend very much time on them now, aside from just singing them for you and explaining how they work by the same method. So if this is a bit much for you, it's okay. So we have quarter notes. They were 1 beat each. Now we're going to take eighth notes, chopping those quarter notes into 2 pieces, 2 equal-sized pieces each time. Same process we used for each note value before this. So we have 2 eighth notes, and that means that we're going to put, going back down to our example from before, we're going to put an eighth note, an extra note, in between each of our quarter notes. Okay, the way that we count these, which we will go over in a different video much more explicitly, is 1 te, I'm going to write it nice and tiny and you'll see why later, 2 te, 3 te, 4 te. Those te's are just unique syllables that we use to count these to make things easier for ourselves. Let me go ahead and count you 1 measure of eighth notes. 1, 2, ready, and 1 te, 2 te, 3 te, 4 te. And you'll notice that now, since I added a note in between each time, I have twice as many notes that fit in that measure. Lastly, I'm going to go over one more, note value. If you chop each one of those eighth notes into 2 equal-sized pieces, you get, well, I'm losing my little arrow right here. You get 1, 2 16th notes. Okay, I wrote 4 of them all together just to make it a lot easier because you usually see them in groups of 4. But the process we went through is the same. And that means that going back to our initial example, or initial little work box, we have adding 1 note in between each other note. We have 4 notes in every beat now, which means we're going to have, these notes are going to be twice as fast and there's twice as many fitting in the measure. You'll notice that these look just like eighth notes, except they have an extra beam. So the beam is what connects the notes horizontally, like the line I just drew. I'll draw the beam one more time. This is the second beam. Okay, the way that we count these is going to be 1, ti, te, ta. And the same thing for each other one. 2, ti, te, ta. 3, ti, te, ta. And 4, ti, te, ta. Zooming out, I'm going to go ahead and count these for you. I'm going to use the arrow. It's not going to be quite as easy, but you'll notice that every time I count, even a new rhythm that you're not used to, the numbers are always still on the beat. In other words, 1, 2, 3, and 4 still land on the clicks, which lands with your foot. Let me go ahead and count this for you. 1, 2, ready, and 1 ti teta, 2 ti teta, 3 ti teta, 4 ti teta. Okay, that is how the rhythm tree works. We'll be referring to the rhythm tree in multiple other videos after this, so if you forget how the actual breakdown works, just refer to this video. Thank you.